we are so grateful that you can join us each and every morning because, 80% is showing up. And we always value, we appreciate you showing up to listening, learning, and growing because, you know what? That's what we love to do. We love to share our knowledge to you so that you can improve on your life and business as well. So today, my co-host Ria is going to be taking over the conversation. But before she does, I want to welcome all of you and thank you for joining. My name is Alka.
My name is Ria.
And welcome to our show. All right, Ria, pass the mic to you.
Thank you, Alka. Today's topic is a continuation of Increase Our Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, today I'm going to be sharing with you the story of Robert and Kim Kiyosaki on how they budgeted. And it was a story between their accountant. So this story is true. It happened to Kim and Robert. And a lot of us will think, I can't do that. So just trust the story because it happened to Robert and Kim. So let me share budget tip number 1, which is making a budget surplus and expense. And I like how they presented it because they shared the story, and hopefully this story will stick to you, to me, and to all of the other listeners. Like I said, we have to trust their story because it happened for them. They're multimillionaires. So in the beginning, when they started, they were not multimillionaires. They were middle class, hard earning income earners. They initially had a job. And they were entrepreneurs. Kim was an entrepreneur. They started with rental apartments. So they didn't have enough money. Now, the question we would ask ourselves is, how did they make the budget surplus and expense? So let me tell you the story. So the lesson I learned is a surplus must be a priority. So the budget surplus must be a priority. Second, the best way to make the surplus a priority is through habits. And that is, we need to reprioritize because we're talking about money, we have to reprioritize our spending habits. Third lesson I learned is we have to make saving, tithing, investing, at least, this was the principle number 2, we have to make saving, tithing, and investing principle number 2. What is principle number 1? Principle number 1 is to make income. Fourth, and we have to list saving, tithing, investing as an expense on our financial statement. And I'll discuss this further in a few minutes from now. Lesson 5, it is easier said than done, then doing action. 6, we must know that most of us can agree with the logic and agree that people need to make the saving, tithing, investing a higher priority. We all agree. And like what the book said, it is easier said than taking action. 7, this is the story of Robert and Kim Kiyosaki. Robert and Kim, now, they shared the story of how they handled this problem. So, as soon as they were married, like I said, they didn't have a golden spoon and fork. They had humble beginnings. As soon as they were married, they had the same financial problems. Many newlyweds, or many of us do and have. Second, or letter B, they have more expense, just like a lot of us have. They have more expense than income. And now, to solve this problem, they hired, I know it was expensive at that time, a bookkeeper. But they did the right thing, bookkeeper, and they called her Betty. They hired a bookkeeper, and I too have a bookkeeper. Now, in the story, Betty was instructed, was told this, to take 30% of all income off the top as an expense. So when everything, all their drips of income, Betty, the bookkeeper, was to take 30% of all their income as an expense. So, and then what they did, they were going to put that and set that aside, put that aside, that 30% as an, into the asset column. So this would look like this. Now, when you do your personal financial statement, everything has to be balanced. So you have the income statement. So when you take one, it has to go somewhere. So there's an income statement and there's a balance sheet. When you take one, it has to go to the other. So in the income statement, so this is income, and this is expense. In the balance sheet, you have your assets and you have your liabilities. Now, what Betty, the bookkeeper, did, so she took the savings. So remember, 30% of all income, 30% of all the income will be taken and will be put into the expense. So this were the savings, tithing, and investing. And what she was instructed by Robert and Kim was, after making it an expense, she would put it into the balance sheets of the asset column. So now we have the saving, tithing, investing in the asset column. So that's where she would put it in. So example, if Robert had $1,000 of income and they have an expense of $1,500, and this is true for majority of us who are in the middle class income, our expense is way higher than our income. So what Betty did was she was to take 30% of the 1,000. So that means that would be $300. And then she would put that $300 into the asset column. Because why? This $300 is now an expense. This $300 goes to the expense of saving, tithing, and investing. And then Betty, with the remaining $700, so $700 is $1,000 of income minus $300 of the saving, tithing, investing, you are left with $700. So with the remaining $700, Betty, the bookkeeper, was instructed to pay the $1,500 of expense. And Betty almost collapsed, because how can you pay $700? How can you pay that $700 to the $1,500 of expense? Betty almost tried to quit, but Betty understood, after talking with Robert and Kim, that there was a bigger plan. Betty just trusted the process. So the book says Betty was a great bookkeeper, but she budgeted like a poor person. So Betty was a great bookkeeper, but she budgeted like a poor person. Now, Betty, she paid everyone else first, and she paid herself last. Now, since there was rarely anything left over, she paid herself nothing. because she paid herself last. Now, her creditors, Betty, the bookkeeper, her creditors, her government were all the mortgage, they were all more important to her than herself. That's why she had nothing left. Betty argued and fought with Robert and Kim. All of her training as a bookkeeper told her to pay everyone else, the government, the mortgage, the creditors, first before herself. Now, Robert Kiyosaki finally got Betty, the bookkeeper, to understand she was doing Robert and Kim a favor. She was actually helping them. Now, Robert explained to Betty, the bookkeeper, she was helping them solve a very big problem. And the problem was not having enough money. And Robert said, if you solve problems, this will make you smarter. So when Betty, the bookkeeper, understood that she was creating income, she was creating income through the expense. Now, if you remember, this is the income and this is the expense. And 30% of it, of the income, goes to the expense, which is the saving, the tithing, and the investing. So Betty understood that she was creating through the expense, and Robert and Kim were being paid first. So for every $1 of income, Betty would take 30 cents and put that into the expense column of saving, tithing, investing. Betty knows that saving, tithing, investing were necessary expense to create a budget surplus. And thus paying yourself first. So this is the story of how Robert and Kim actually made money, even though their income was only 1,000 and their expense was 1,500, because they made first a priority. So even though their income was 1,000, they didn't put all the 1,000 into paying the expense, into paying the creditors, into paying the mortgage, into paying all the other bills. They made to it, they instructed Betty to take 30%, $300, and pay themselves first by putting it into the expense column of saving, tithing, and investing. Now, in the balance sheet, when you take something, you have to put it somewhere. This 30% did not go to the liability. It went into the asset column. This 30% went into the asset column, the saving, tithing, and investing. So there's more to this story, but you have to stay tuned for that story to unfold. So this is what it means by budget tip number 1, making a budget surplus an expense. So that's for today, Alka. This is a long story and had to make it short. And this is where Robert and Kim shared how each of one who have less income and more of expense, how we can prioritize ourselves first by doing the saving, tithing, investing, taking 30% of our income and putting it into an expense, and in the balance sheet, putting that into the asset column, not the liability column, into the asset column.
Wow, even though that was a long story, you're trying to make it short, it was still long. But you know what? A lot of great information. Absolutely. So you have to pay yourself first, which is the key. And oftentimes, we always, example given right there, we oftentimes pay other people because we may not have enough. So we pay ourselves last, but absolutely. You need to pay yourself first. So what's the idea behind paying yourself first?
Right, because if you solve problems, then you get smarter. When you think, oh my goodness, my expense is 1,500 and I only have income. And now, let's use the example, you have $1,000 as an income, and you have to, it's a must that the $300 gets to put to you, where you pay yourself first. Now you're left with $700 to put the $1,500 expense. Now, isn't that a big problem? You have $700 left to pay $1,500. Yeah, that makes you wonder, how am I able to pay the $1,500? That's why in the book says, if you solve problems, you get smarter. Either number one, you decrease your expense, or number two, you find ways to get those income a lot higher. So by paying yourself mandatory, and that $300, it doesn't go to your liabilities, it goes to your asset, right? For you to invest later. That goes to saving, tithing, and investing. So now, because you have a big problem, you have $700 left to pay that $1,500 of expense. you'll be scratching your head. How am I going to pay this 1,500? So you get creative. Either you make more income or you reduce your expense.
Creativity follows commitment. Creativity follows commitment. So we need to, get creative and find ways that you can earn extra income. Because right now, you know, you may not have the income, or you may be at the salary, you know, what you have, you might be at a plateau, and you're wondering, oh, what am I supposed to do? How can I leverage? What do I need to do? What do I have to do so that I'm making more income? Money is coming in, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think this was just amazing. And guys, you know what? Yeah, Ria shared a lot of information right here. But you know what? That's what it's all about. You know, you guys are always constantly learning, growing, and you're always here. You're consistently showing up, and we appreciate you with value for that. Ria, thank you so much. That was just a lot of gold nuggets that was shared. Absolutely. And you know what? We always want you to keep on improving. So whether it's your life, your business, and how you can leverage right now to really take hold on what you need to implement. But knowledge is power, but knowledge has to be implemented. So what you've learned, what you've heard right now, you know, go out there, go and implement what you need to do, whatever you learned, that you can have that one piece of takeaway that you learned. Go and do that. Go and take action. So this is how, you know, you're going to improve. So knowledge alone is great, but that's power. But, you know, it's not worth anything if you're not implementing on what you've learned. So, you know, that was just really great. A long story, but you're trying to cut it short. But, you know, that was just amazing. Really great information. So, guys, I hope you know you took really great notes.